All right, we're in business. Hello, welcome or welcome back to the channel. I'm Zach Markowski. This is Sharper Pen. We get into literature and communication. Specifically, I do a lot of literary analysis, meaning reading texts, reading works, interpreting them. It just means reading books. So today I have a piece of poetry by an interesting author, a Mr. Charles Bukowski. He was an American, and the interesting thing about him is the class he comes from, because basically, if you understand how these things work in America, there is no poet class. And, you could say that Plato banished the poets long ago. So usually no one's ever making money off their poetry. But as a writer and an artist, he did what only starving artists think is romantic, which is he literally starved for his art. He had a kind of a rough life, kind of comes from the embarrassing, like lower middle class of America, these fabrications that were made just this last century. And maybe I think it was somewhere between his Slavic spirit and the development of his own voice through his own experience and his own perception is where you see that he diverges from the culture and those around him, where other people are very much in love with their Mickey Mouse reality. Bukowski's showing a very different side of America. And I could see from a class perspective, I don't even think he ever got an honorary degree, whereas a lot of other authors, like let's say Kurt Vonnegut Jr., another American author, he was a soldier and this, that, the other. Uh, even he got honorary degrees. I don't know if Bukowski ever did, but he was frowned upon because if you know anything about intellectual and literary circles, is that they frown upon outsiders because knowledge is institutional and an institution is power and power is money. So, these lower classes are not supposed to be literary figures, let alone icons or heroes, right? So for this beer drinking, hardworking factory guy, this blue collar guy, to succeed where even most white collars or scholars fail, you could see why he was frowned upon, especially given that he wasn't writing about dandelions and how nice things are. He was talking about men's lives breaking down on the factory line. He was talking about the violence on the streets of Los Angeles, where he grew up in California. He's talking about the senseless squander, the stupidity, the pig-headedness of those around him. And again, like I said, somewhere between him being a Slav, because Bukowski isn't exactly Adam or John Smith now, is it? Right? Oh, and real quick, yes, this is Dolly. No, I didn't buy this shirt. It was a gift from a friend. Thank you, Birdie. Now that I'm wearing it, I love it, and it feels really good. It's got to be made from angel feathers or angel pelt. Like, it's got to be something endangered. It feels so good. I don't know what it's made out of, but it feels really good. And speaking of which, I have this here, this image of the clock. So we'll just contemplate that for a second while I talk about Bukowski and, kind of what he was getting into. The most interesting thing about Bukowski, again, these are matters of class and money and power, because I don't know if I were to ask you or the average American, educated or not educated even, I could ask them who are the most famous mailmen in history. I don't think they'd be able to name one. Obviously, the battle at the runner of marathon, maybe we could make literary categories of prophets are their own messengers, or certain philosophers and thinkers at their points in time, not just Nostradamus, but Nietzsche and his soothsayer, right? That certain people play that role of messenger. But he was literally a mailman. He worked for the federal government, right? Most people never escape these positions. They just work them. Their people are just live in the perpetual public works. And so he got to give a voice to a corner of that here in the late stages of American empire. And for that, he was resented. They hated him. I'd argue they hate him to this day. If you try trotting Bukowski out somewhere, well, he's got some beautiful poetry. He really does. If you bring out his honest stuff, people, you could just see it. It's too close to primal reality. It's everything we sweep under the rug. So looking, speaking of which, I remember the first time I really looked at this picture here, I thought, do you think the first time I really looked at this picture, my thought was, man, is there a reason that there's just this fly right in the middle here, right? As if there's no getting over that or through that. And then I tried to figure out what was going on here, and I realized, like, oh, look, it's getting blown apart. This thing has given up the ghost here, right? Where'd 1 and 2 go? They're over here splattering somewhere where there's 5, and there's 6. And where's 7? Where's 8? Because 7, 8, 9, obviously. And here's 11 over here, broken in the ruins of time. And then you got a moth, because maybe that's the brief candle of life. And so, really, what I think he's painting here is perception. It's kind of inside out, but this is a picture of perception, is what Dali is painting. And then a poet is no different in terms of what they're capturing and their space and time. So we're going to begin here with a poem by Bukowski, apparently from 1965, called Ignis Fatuus. And this is a YouTube video, but here's a supposedly found on the web, a full reading of it. So let me make sure it displays properly. Okay. So originally I was just going to read the poem, but then I thought I'd go through it because I think it really captures this late modern position of man, which is to say the last man who lives longest. And this is someone who, I don't even know that he read Nietzsche, but he's picking up on the signs of the time. So and what it means real quick is willow, it's Roman, right? Or it's Latin. And what it means is willow the wisp, right? In case you don't know what that is, it's kind of a pagan spirit who basically deceives and misleads. So that's the premise in which this poem is titled, right? So there's your message. It's already there in the title. So a good poet will put everything in the title. Everything you need to know can actually just be gleaned from the title, typically. Um, Number 1, the only solitude is sleep or death. 2, we were not clever enough, kind to others, and cruel to self when self asked for mercy and was denied. 3, the holiest privacy remains waiting on us, and all that was misunderstood or abandoned will come together. 4, let my failure be your fortune, this that was broken in careless air. Let it be known that to know your own death is to die twice, once really and then hardly at all. 5, let it be known that there is nothing as ugly in all its tangents as the human beast, a trick set against the blood of your soul. And there's another poem of his where he says, build your foundation anywhere, just don't build it on people. Oh my God, don't build it on people. They are so unreliable and common and value. It's a disaster, as everyone can see. 6, that doesn't mean life is bad or evil or disaster. It just means people as such are a disaster and a bad foundation to build on. 6, let it be known that solitude is only mercy and the only lover. See, and this is interesting because to me, this gets to Zarathustra's dream where he sees himself, right? He asks his disciples to help him decipher this dream of his. All life had I renounced, so I dreamed, night watchman and grave guardian had I become, right? A real pessimist, a real bummer, right? A real fun time at parties, aloft in the lone mountain fortress of death. There's something Buddhistic here about building, be an island unto yourself, build a palace above the flood of death, right? There did I guard his coffins, full stood the musty vaults of those trophies of victory. So the mythology of man, look at what we've understood, look at what we've conquered. Vini vidi vici, right? I came, I saw, I conquered, I pissed on your fence post, I took your wife, I took all your money, whatever it is that gets people off. There's something to be said of human morality, that the same sadism and of punishment and theft and murder that makes the master's dick hard is the same brew and stew and juices in which the slave foments and resents and froths and bubbles up through the ages, let's say, right, to be visible. It's kind of like in Zarathustra where it breaks through to the surface. Behold, I am disease, right? But the odor of dust-covered eternities did I breathe. Sultry, dust-covered lay my soul. And who could have aired his soul there? Meaning, like, the higher men who seek Zarathustra on his mountain fortress here, basically his mountain cave, they couldn't have been there with him. He was alone. Brightness of midnight was ever around me. Lonesomeness cowered beside me, and as a third death rattle stillness, the worst of my female friends. Keys did I carry? The rustiest of all keys, and basically, so he's guardian of the underworld, and he's there alone, and eventually the gates fling open, and his outer netherworld is invaded. So the idea when Bukowski says the only peace is sleep and death, I think Nietzsche's dream here is forecasting a time in which even sleep and death will not be freed from. Then did a roaring wind tear the folds apart, whistling, whizzing, and piercing. It threw into me a black coffin, right? A very nihilistic age, an age scared of death and primal reality, but unable to extricate themselves from that. The fact that that's their reality, that grave diggers wait at their gates, right? And in the roaring and whistling and whizzing coffin burst open and spouted out 1,000 peals of laughter, and 1,000 caricatures of children, angels, owls, fools, and child-sized butterflies laughed and mocked and roared at me. Fearfully was I terrified thereby. It prostrated me, and I cried with horror as I never cried before. But mine own crying awoke in me. There we go. Sorry about that. Where I just realized the text was off screen. A riddle still unto me this dream, right? So he basically says to his disciples, riddle me this, what does the dream mean? And then the disciple gets it completely wrong. The disciple says, it's you returning triumphant, overcoming death. And Nietzsche is going, oh my gosh, you got it. I'm not going to say backwards, but more or less, right? And this is where Zarathustra once more says, this has had its time, and he goes his own way, right? As you're wont to do. So recognizing his place in time, Bukowski's goes on, let it be known that solitude is the only mercy and the only lover. And Zarathustra saying, no, even that dream is wrecked. Even that fortress above death has been invaded, right? Monetized. So that was, now we have number 7. Let it be known that most men love what they can see, and they can see each other, and they love this because they are very little. Right. I wouldn't just say extroverted culture as such, or mass culture, or the culture of no culture, but really it was the selling out of all our highest value, right? Poetry turned into advertising, philosophy turned into marketing and data analytics, and then philosophy turned into yeah, basically analytical, there's this whole made up divide of analytical and continental, but really it's just the machine versus the human, more or less. You can think of us as John Henrying this, right? Before we get completely buried under machines and AI, people are going to put up a fight before the glimmer of light goes out in humanity's eyes forever. So he's kind of portraying this, right? Let it be known that most men love what they can see each other, and they love this because they are very little, right? This world has already been made small. This is the last Eichmann who lives longest, right? He's small, he makes the world small. They have to infinitely make this world smaller to accommodate so many of them, right? There's not enough rooms, funny enough, for all the smallness, right? Imagine that, it's weird, right? So then we have number 8. Let it be known that I am bitter and damned and tired and useless. Let it be known that when the final hope goes, there remains but a staring at the dance and a watching of the feeble intercourse of the idiots with very little note taking. Right? So idiocracy, more or less. 9. Here we have number 9. Let it be known that I am dead, but there is no anger. Let it be known that most men are dead many years before burial. Let it be known that many men die in childhood, that many men are born dead. I guess that makes them zombies. Although they're I've covered like guys like Gurdjieff on this channel. Their theories on like, oh, man's born asleep, lives asleep, dies asleep. Bukowski saying they're born dead, live dead, die dead, right? Live in undeath. They make sound and grow up, advance into adult behavior, and do the things of civilization. Let it be known that these men never existed, that their funerals were extreme farce, and also the dead tears for the already dead. Let it be known that the worms themselves were nearer to truth and that they did not cry. Okay, so I wouldn't just call this meanness or crankiness or something like that, nor is this just a simple curse, because average men's curses are really simple, or usually they're just throwing a right hook at whatever animal or being or machine is in their immediate vicinity, right? This basic ape behavior, really, right? You're in pain, so you lash out. I think there's more to it than just that. You know, it's a profound statement on understanding types and classes of men that for most of history, they're just turned out and over, right? Just steamrolled right over. Most of them die or disappear without a fight, without a struggle, without resistance. They were fit right in into whatever was built for them to fit into. And it's also in terms of this idea of, oh, we're a humanitarian civilization, we're a liberal civilization. He's saying the worms are more honest, right? Like the worms are more honest than the humans, they don't cry. You know, I think Americans and Christians are still profoundly mistaken in thinking that they still think there's a human self that matters. They still think there's a subject here. They think they're defending or saving someone or something when they were already the vehicle of infection for these Trojan horses, for these overwhelming forces. So, number 10, let it be known that a man need not be Christ to be crucified. Let it be known that, right, and it's funny thinking about Christ, he's a sacrificial model, dead at age 32. We just cycle through people like that, right? They just, like a corpse grinder, like a food processor, basically, right? Um, so, the fact that we made a big deal about one guy's death a long time ago, you know, that was because he was supposedly God, but when he's dead, therefore the meaning of the earth goes, therefore the meaning of man goes. Humanitarianism is a myth, morality is a myth, Jesus is a myth, humanism is a myth, people's lives mattering other than them being statistics trying to save themselves from becoming said statistics, right? You see where I'm going? Do you see what I'm stepping in? I don't think it's cynical at all. I think we're talking about people literally being utterly crushed, destroyed, and assimilated by the proverbial public works, which is like a headless dragon on the loose. And they're, right, like I said it before, you know, the end will happen before people let the lights go out. So let it be known that man need not be Christ to be crucified, right? Let it be known that each man can be crucified each day, each moment, each breath, to sleep and awaken. This is Emil Turan, right? Men wake up despite what they know. You know, consciousness isn't just it's not little thorn in the paw. It's the spear in the side. It's the dagger in the flesh, right? It's asking for water and being given vinegar. It's kind of the whole story itself, right? Anyway, each breath, you know, in a culture of cynical Romans like our late modern period here, you know, we call them Americans, but same difference. Let it be known that a man can die and die and die and die and still feel the pain and know he is dead and still feel the pain and know there's nothing he can do and still feel the pain. Let it be known, right? He knows he's obsolete. He knows he's on his way out. He knows many things. 11. Let it be known that the temples are nothing and the bells are. Oh, see, he's just being rude here. This isn't confirming. People want to hear nice things about themselves. Bukowski is a poet. You're supposed to tell them nice things. Talk about the flowers and the birds and the bees. Let it be known that the temples are nothing and the bells are nothing and fame is nothing and victory is nothing and sex is nothing. This is what they did to it, right? See, people will be upset at this. It's a denial, right? You're bringing up the void. They don't want to look at the void. They're scared to death of the void. We got to have the lights and the TVs and the cameras and the action on at all times because the void is so terrifying, arguably. Victory is nothing, sex is nothing, that solitude brings madness, and the crowd brings madness, and drink eats the body like a tiger, that there is no voice to speak with no ear to hear. And this is where I depart from Bukowski, because to me, see, this is humanity. This is the little man getting his fingers into everything for all time. This is, and I don't mean Bukowski here because he was, you know, I think Christianity, like it does to a lot of poets and higher types, makes them sick to their stomach, right? But this is the bad trip of the last century. This is the bad trip for mankind through all time, recognizing that, hey, it doesn't stop and start with you. We're just cycling through, right? We do this all the time. You know, no, you don't get to live for eternity. No, that's for the rich and powerful to decide what that is, what that looks like, what that definition is. And the masses have always just only been guaranteed death. So he's kind of confirming this, to my mind. Um, you know, and for like in Baudrillard, you can contrast these ideas that he said you can think of in the Pharaoh's time, that when the servants were building the pyramids of Egypt, that there were malcontent slaves who wanted immortality too, but you know, that was for Pharaoh. That's not for you, that's for Pharaoh. So 12. Let it be known that there will be other men such as I. lifted for the lion's mouth, burned down by false loves, tricked by kindness. Oh man, this is America for you. Talk about utopia disaster. Misled by intellect, dizzied by posy, sacrificed for profit, used as cheap labor. And these will be the kindest of the happenings compared to what will enter the eye and ear and the brain and seep to the innards and begin their death work. Oh, yeah, this is Zarathustra for sure. I pity all such brothers of mine who will follow me in the centuries, unable to love because there is nothing to love, unable to kill because there is nothing alive, right? This is like nihilism taking over. This is the masses becoming disenfranchising, serving no purpose, being worthless as beings and intellects, right? Once upon a time, people were raised to think that the individual matters. No. In theory, the death of one is a tragedy. In reality, it's just a statistic. So, forever hanging and bleeding and dizzied by the beast human, the walls, the gardens, the sun, the flowers, the kisses, the flags, the seas, the animal, the food, the liquors, the painting, the symphonies, all uselessness. 13. Now we're at the 13th hour of the 13th month of the 13th, right? Time is out of joint. Let it be known that birth is not holy, that death is not holy, right? Unless it's sanctified by the Creator. That life is not holy. Let it be known that I have bled without crowns, that I will bleed in a moment, right? Because if this is a very intelligent man, what do the dumb have to say? Nothing, right? Nothing, or they imitate. That I will bleed forever, red, 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 and the hawks will dance within my bones and rejoice. But that I die for what man is and not for what I almost was. They too little of anything, and myself just lifted enough to see the horror, to sicken and go mad and wilt. Right. Nietzsche talks about this in Twilight of the Idols, right? He talks about it with Pascal. He talks about how Christianity has been a blight on higher intellects for a long time standing. In fact, let me find it. Well, here's Emerson. Emerson says society is a joint stock company in which all members conspire against the manhood of its individuals. You can see that for being so nihilistic, these people sure are scared as shit of men. Oh my God, fucking cowards. Cowardice is what keeps this shit show together, right? That's what keeps the circus going, not brotherhood, not morality, not liberalism, right? That's like a slow smothering poison. What is good enhances power. Here we go. Mankind does not represent a development towards a better, stronger, or higher type, in the sense in which this is supposed to occur today. Right? It's like you can breed the wolf over and over again, but apparently you get the dog. Right? Funny. Progress is merely a modern idea, that is to say, a false idea. The modern European is still far below the European of the Renaissance in value. So he's saying these people suck. Like there's a lot of them, but they're not as valuable as the individuals were. And you think about it from a survival perspective. Like think of our toddlers. Like our toddlers today are worthless when in the Industrial Revolution they would have been manning the machines, right, with their little toddler fingers to get in there and get out whatever was stuck in the asbestos swirling machine. you know Sorry, I'm not trying to be cynical. It's just right, like we're going to go back to that kind of productivity before long. We're just going to need to. People are going to need kids just to survive. Like this is the way it is in a lot of uh, Americans haven't had it too good, is what I'm saying. The modern European is still far below the European of the Renaissance, right? Oh God, they've only been further devalued, decombobulated, atomized. The process of evolution. Oh, and also globalized, right? Just mass culture being basically devoured from the ground up. The process of evolution does not by any means imply elevation, enhancement, and increasing strength. On the other hand, isolated individual cases are continually succeeding in different places on Earth, right? Like a mailman become poet, got himself a house with a pool. How many people do that? Almost nobody. No mailman in the course of history ever did that. This might seem like a small victory for the pagans, but I got to point it out when it happens, right? Hey, Plato, nice try. You tried to banish him. Look at him. He came from the mail office. That was hard friggin' work. It still is, actually. Easily dangerous work with how crazy Americans are, too. Anyway, something which side by side of mankind in general represents a kind of Superman. Such lucky strokes of great success have always been possible and will perhaps always be possible. And even whole races, right? And this is what, but it takes more and more. Like now we need billions to get one Putin. We need to churn out all of Russia. I don't even know what we got going on in America. We got a bunch of mutts and circus and bread. It's hard to say just yet. But this is kind of what he's talking about. Such lucky strokes of great success have always been possible and like will always be possible, and even whole races, tribes, and nations may be in a certain circumstances represent such lucky strokes. And you would talk about, any people who came to value what was hard and difficult and stake their survival and their being on it and go down with those values rather than cowardly abandon ship or try to change said values, right? See, this is where societies go off the rails. They think they're changing, they're not. Let me get back to the poem here. So that's what he's saying, right? See the horror to wilt and go mad. Oh, there was another thing in here. So this is Nietzsche talking about Christianity making higher types sick. We must not deck out and adorn Christianity as waged a deadly war upon the higher type of man, as set a ban upon all the fundamental instincts of this type, and has distilled evil and the devil himself out of these instincts. Elsewhere, Nietzsche says, by way of corporations and organizations, Christians continually try to circumvent this, but in the end rely on this self-same individual. So at the end, that's why, very few people get paychecks, real paychecks. So the strong man, and then that's not the same as people that's not the same as people being thoroughly domesticated and owned by a system that pays them out well, specifically for their silence or for their cooperation, right? Not the same things here. The strong man is the typical pariah, the villain, right? Not the person who the system was made easy for to get in there, but anyway, Christianity has sided with like the actual outsider, the actual other. Christianity has sided like real competition, the competition that is banished. That so if Plato banished the poets, it's because he was banishing the competition. Then what real competition is there if you're banishing the competition? See, nothing's fair here, actually, right? Plato's idea of justice is just another flipping of the table, a turning of the wheel, which in Christian terms breaks it. So the strong man is the typical pariah, the villain. Christianity has sided with everything weak, low, and botched. It has made an ideal out of antagonism towards all the self preservative instincts of strong life, right? Intelligence, freedom. It has corrupted even the reason of strongest intellects by teaching that the highest values of intellectuality are sinful, misleading, and full of temptations. The most lamentable example of this was the corruption of Pascal, who believed in the perversion of his reason through original sin. Right? Gotcha, dummy. Damn it. This is why Nietzsche or Zarathustra advises bite the head off the snake and spit it as far from you as you can. And don't wait around for these dumbasses to come along, pick up with the dead snake, play with the snake, try and shove it back down your throat. Uh, anyway, what he's saying is it wasn't original sin, actually. It was that Christianity perverted his intellect, right? It does this to a lot of people, and it has through the ages. So we're actually at a turning point. Nietzsche's happy about this, mind you. For the rest at the bottom, it is bad news. Hour 14. Do not take as personal what I say about life altogether, unless on another plane you consider yourself a defender of life and man. What's there even left to defend? Which is only another weakness of the species, like a rat guarding its nest, and for which I cannot hold you totally to blame. Right? Because what's an animal not going to do? Is it, or what's an animal going to do? Not piss on its fence post, not defend its rat nest. So, Bukowski is absolving you guys of your sin. He's absolving all you concerned trolls and all you weirdos who don't have kids or property or investments in life, who somehow get it in your thick skulls that it's on you to try to tell the masses of humanity how to live and what to do. And, America has been a disaster in this regard. Christianity has been a disaster in the regard because these people really think they're special when in reality they were history's freak show or accident. You know, and Nietzsche says to the contrary that everyone's special. No, no, that it's a lucky stroke, it's a rare stroke, it's a lightning strike. The rest are just heavy drops. Kind of like taking a Deleuzian dive because that's all there is fatal strategies. The moment intellect enacts that, things are already in motion and they were set here when we arrived. Things are designed and selected to be a very specific way. Anyway, Bukowski says he doesn't blame you for this. He doesn't blame you for being a rat catcher, or a rat's nest guardian. On to number 15. I have a funny story for you. I thought of this time that I was pulled over once by a cop, and this is back when I was in college, and he tossed up my car for whatever reason. I might or might not have had a record at the time, and he he finds the book Ham on Rye by Bukowski, and he's like, "This book," and I'm like, "Yeah, that book," and he's like, "This is my favorite book." And the weirdest thing is, I had no idea if he was serious or if he said that about any book he finds or every book he finds, or if he's just making small talk, or he's never read a book in his life for all I know. He's just talking shit. So who knows? But I took him at face value. I took it as that he was telling the truth. So you never know, right? Who finds what where? Only that it seems like we look for what belongs to us. And anyway, for hour number 15 here, Bukowski says, the only solitude is death, but not this death, not this death, not this death. You know, Nietzsche says, Alpa, Alpa, it's nothing, it's nothing. Who carried his ashes to the mountain? Do it time and time again. I'll go through 100 souls a day if I have to. I'll get over myself time and time again, to do what I need to do, regardless of where these other creatures stick their heads and whatever little hovels of existence and intellectual and moral superstructures, however they want to take their pay, let's say. Anyway, that's the poem Ignis Fatuus by Charles Bukowski. And again, remember, it means will o' the wisp. It means misleading, deceiving. Our media culture is exactly what this is. And to kind of give you a picture here, the story goes like this. Earth is captured by a techno-capital singularity as Renaissance rationalization and oceanic navigation lock into commoditization takeoff. Now, basically, he's condensed. Okay, mythology has disappeared already, and now things are well underway. Kind of like late post-feudal period Dutch capitalism is taking over. Double entry bookkeeping is invented, which basically means the value of things here always equals the values of things there. And the best thing about this is there's no end to how you can cook and rewrite these books and stories. So in this story, Earth is captured by this techno-capital singularity, right? Renaissance rationalization from not, it's not just the artist. It's not this idea that, oh, a few great men made an age. No, no, it was this widespread acceptable belief that slowly came to take over all institutions until life became increasingly a series of pragmatic rationalization choices, which when locked with oceanic navigation, thinking of Columbus discovering the new world, thank God he found gold, right? It wasn't just right? Anyway, locked into commoditization takeoff, meaning everyone wants the good shit now. We're learning new processes. Intelligence is growing more intelligent, and as intelligence encounters itself the world over, it wants the steel, it wants the sugar, it wants the spices, it wants the slave labor power, right? So logistically accelerating a techno-economic interactivity crumbles social order, right? So once the church ruled the earth, now it's money, right? Into auto-sophisticating machine runaway. Now machines exist for their own reason, and it's definitely not human well-being or whatever, right? We knew that back in the British industrial age, and then we tried to get away from it to say, no, look, we're taking the children's out of the machines, and now, we just cut to that. You just blow them up wherever, right? We kind of don't need children anymore, do we? Maybe we could just make the children in the machines. Maybe that's kind of like the Frankenstein story. One interpretation of that is that a scientist figured out how to way to finally procreate without having to do anything with these yucky women, right? These yucky, stupid women. Which, if you're trying to advertise something to men, is probably the worst idea in the world. Hey, we can procreate and live without women. Like that's not going to be a very good selling point for men, right? Anyway, so as markets learn to manufacture intelligence, right, and sucks it out, right, like a vampire, because to nick land, intelligence is synonymous with capital and vice versa. So all this idea of playing subject, object, keep away and grab ass, from Marx, Freud, and Nietzsche, all this kind of subtlety just gives way to total fucking power. Total power just masters dick as hard as ever for all time. And any humanity who ever dares to stand in the way will just be proverbially Gaza'd or Palestined, or what else can we turn into verbs? You know what I mean? Like there's like he basically gets to it here. He says, Neo China arrives from the future. This is meltdown, but what he says is, there it is. Here's the line we're looking for. Oh, look, see, let me not screw that up. Nothing human makes it out of the future. Nothing human makes it out of the near future. My apologies in advance. I'm probably going to mess up the screen another once or twice here as I kind of fly by to the seat of my pants. People were wondering what the story is, and this is the story. It's Meltdown. What does land have to remember? This is written in 1994. Is it Meltdown has a place? Oh, here you go. Right. So those of you observing the institutional and liberal scene over the last few years. It's kind of funny. Right? Land's kind of hilarious. Meltdown has a place for you as a schizophrenic, HIV positive, transsexual, Chinese, Latino, stim addicted LA hooker with implanted mirror shades and a bad attitude. Right? So it's kind of cyberpunk. Blitzed on a poly drug mix of K Nova, or these days special K therapy is legal, right? Synthetic serotonin, which is maybe fentanyl, and female orgasm analogs, which is I don't know, just whatever women have done with civilization. Treated it like rioters and looters meant to. You've just iced three Turing cops with a highly cinematic 9mm automatic. So, intelligent humor for you. The residue of animal twang in your nerves transmit in a imminent quake catastrophe. Zero is coming in and you're on the run. Like I said, drone technologies, surveillance technologies, capital itself, intelligent self makes sure that human beings will never be able to organize again, never be able to escape debt and institutional power, never be right. You see kind of what everyone is up against, right? Never mind that Christianity already drove a lot of these people sick, crazy, disgusting, right? Because it really is contemptful to go, man, these people built utopia and then look what they did to it. Look what they did to themselves, right? It's hard not to be contemptful going, I'm not saying they deserve it, but when they had all this and this is the result, it's Mephistophelian in the sense that it deserves to perish only insofar as it failed its own ideals. See, this was the problem with Christianity. It tried to hold itself to its ideals. Platonism tried to hold men to perfect forms and justice. And in a world that is just, there's nothing fair about it. Back to Bukowski, right? Oh, you're born a lower middle class American in the Depression era. You're going to eat beans and Vienna sausages and eat ketchup soup, listen to your crazy parents scream about uh, fucking silverfish as total like slave vassals of a increasingly all powerful technological super state that basically mind controls people with media, and then that you're going to become a writer in a totally illiterate nation, where scholarship is a joke and everyone knows it. We all know it. Like, you can see it on my channel, you can see it, like, don't get me wrong, I know that some of us, these things matter to us, and they matter to me, they matter to my forebears, people I knew, my influences who I met and have worked with before, like the Fontes. Thanks, Vicky. RIP Dan. um, Shirt still feels really good. It's a hot day out and it feels really nice. Thanks again, Birdie. Don't want to get sidetracked here. Because now I'm just an old man reminiscing, and the kids go, "What the hell are you talking about, dude? What are you on about?" Well, I'm telling you, time is out of joint. So if you're waiting for someone or something to come, it's not happening. Meltdown. You have a place here. It's just nothing that you were promised or told, or, this idea, like the whole thing about hyper reality, right? Our simulation of reality. It's not that simulation is inherently tyrannical, it's that this mode of it is, and the way it's engaged as a global superstructure and form of intelligence wielded against other intelligence. And it's crazy to me because it used to be what meant the most was that a man could fight for himself and stand for himself. And in this world of conformity, in this world of just, cowardice, it really is. It's unprecedented. The world has never seen an age like this. So, and again, it's not even the people's here's faults. They were born into it. It's their place and time. If you wanted to get last century, if you wanted to get last century with it in the Heideggerian sense, right? People are thrown into the world. We know this. It's incidental. You know, that they be born into the fascist culture or otherwise. You can't judge them. You weren't there. You don't know. In fact, what we see is when most people are put to the test, they've been caving all along. They've been the last Eichmann. They are the last Eichmanns. I mean, this is kind of the thing I'm trying to get away from. This idea that somewhere there's a revolution, somewhere there's a hero hiding. No, you've been killing them all forever because they're too disruptive, right? We need docile bodies by the millions and billions. So it's a big deal. And guys like Emerson, guys like Nietzsche, Nietzsche, guys like Henry David Thoreau, guys like Bukowski are recognizing that we're increasingly rendering the world dead, inert. Human relationships are dead and inert in a lot of ways. These are monetized transactions. It's survival. It's meltdown. It's bad news for the future. It's the bad ending. In some sense, it's the worst of all worlds because in nihilism, we're past Nietzsche's psychological nihilism, we're past nihilism as the disbelief in man. In this technologically nihilistic world where we can end it with germ warfare, where we can end it with poison, where we can end it with nukes, right? We can end it multiple ways, technologically achievable, realizable. It's already happening in many ways. If you can think of some areas are so poisoned that humans cannot habitate that or drink the water or eat the food there for years to come, hundreds of years to come, maybe thousands of years to come at the worst, right? These kinds of things matter. So things like water and land or gold, right? But where'd the gold go? Where'd the water and land go? Well, it's all owned and everyone can rent now, right? The world has never seen such a techno-feudal state. The world has never seen total rentership by the hundreds and millions and billions, right? And people with no prospects for a change or a brighter future. So when this is the game that's played, understand that the consequences are real. So the politics are very serious to people. This poetry here speaks to primal life and death, and it's exactly what corporate reality has tried to escape from. It's exactly what a Mickey Mouse culture of Mickey Mouse people, no offense, Americans, that's what you are. Everyone knows it. No one takes you seriously. They can't. Maybe like the people you can take seriously are the people who've been trained to capture objectives. Those are the people you can take seriously because those are dangerous people. Everyone else, man, they're so up their own ass, they're so in their own little world, they're in their own little class bubble. They might have the luxury to live a nice life or say, no, things are nice. Look over here in my end of the simulation, right? Because if you could escape the worst of reality, as people have been seeking to do since the Greeks and the Christians and the Romans, right? Like when you can do that and curate that, that is the goal. That becomes the goal. That there's a whole bait and switch here, right? People are realizing, oh wait, you mean not only do we not get heaven, but we also don't get our materialistic utopia? That might be so bad on a large enough scale that, as Nietzsche kind of notes, that just like the Romans died from their slave or the Greeks died from their slavery, that modern people will be burned up by their lack of it because people recognize, like, oh, you went too far with this. There's only so much. Basically, Christianity, as history's worst dinner guest, could only trash the place so badly before people recognize that the rewards ain't coming and then react accordingly. So once you start trying to apply these mythologies of, oh, but man is reasonable, that's what you only because you force that at the end of gunpoint. The moment you let up on that, they're making plans. They got other plans, right? There's always what's planned, there's always what's fatal, and there's always what happens anyway. Anyway, I've been carrying on for a while here. I didn't mean to turn this into a 40-minute talk. There were some relevant points here, though, as you know. Maybe there were a few more things to read here. But look, this is what is all this gobbledygook? This isn't a television show. This isn't reality TV. This isn't AI. This is boring. What am I even doing here? Maybe I'll go become a mailman. Or maybe I'll just keep writing poetry. And in some sense, what I'm really trying to say here is that, when everything formerly defined as man, humans, psychotherapy, all these things that supposedly made up for the conscious or unconscious human subject, if all these ways of life and ways of looking at the world simply no longer apply, no longer pay out, no longer serve a purpose, there's no fixing that. There's no reconciling that. There's no going backwards. There's no, right? Everyone, like so much of what's proposed today, as always, is just the same. Hey, I know, let's do the same thing we always do. Right. Convenient answers, right? This is for those who've always been afraid of change because part of change is primal, and that means death, right? Religion wasn't just about coping with death, though. It was about coping with life itself. It was about finding a purpose, some sort of social relation between here and there. It's one's relationship to others in the world. And when that's been completely annihilated, atomized, monetized, rendered nothing but just dangerous in the broadest social sense. It's just liability after liability, contracts that disfavor whoever's signing it. When it's shit all the way down, just piling up year after year, eventually those bills come due. Eventually, that double entry bookkeeping we talked about, eventually, when people realize, like, oh, Once upon a time there was gold, now there's no gold. Once upon a time there was land, now there's no land. Once upon a time, like there now it's just ones and zeros, you mean? Now there's nothing there at all? It's like the cat's cradle we discussed, right? And then these people, they were all told, look at this cat's cradle, right? Look, can't you see it between my hands? See this great big nothing they left for you? Or they didn't leave it for you, they actually created it for you technically, right? And you're not thankful for this? Look at it. Look at all this. Sorry, I'm not trying to be teasing or mean. I mean, it is, this is what in the cat's cradle in that story with those characters, that's what he's saying. This is why part of why people lose their friggin' minds, why people crash out, why these miserable, like, the more it turns out, the more miserable everyone is, the more miserable they make everyone else, right? Like, there are these certain truisms about human interactions, right? When people recognize they're getting fucked, they get mad. Go figure, right? Go figure, it's a sign of intelligence, if anything. But, maybe we didn't need all this intelligence. Maybe we needed a lot of herd animals to milk dry, and put that shit on autopilot forever, I guess. Call it a day, call it a species. That's a wrap, right? And and the reason why it's a wrap is because, again, all those things that used to bind, all those things that used to matter, all those things that used to work, they don't anymore. They don't have a place. You're talking out of your ass. You're a fossil. You don't even know it yet. It happens all the time in history. Classes, people, nations, empires, they go obsolete, they die. The people don't go anywhere, they just get enlisted into something else. They turn into something else. It's all forced from the outside. This is just change. This is death, this is change. This is Thanatos and Eros. This is civilization, life and death. This is Edgar Allan Poe's City by the Sea, and facing up to that primal reality, which I maintain that Americans are scared to death of the void, because right on the other side of our mindless culture of self indulgence and luxuriant waste is nothing but a void, and everyone knows it. Everyone who's playing the nice game, they'll just be shunted to the side. It's always been this way. Whole people and societies turn on each other, and just people get shunted, people get eaten up alive, and then, people can sit there and wag their finger and do this and that and go, well, stupids, how would you survive if this was you? How would you fight back, right? Kind of goes from there. Anyway, if you're new, thanks for checking out the channel. If you're returning, I appreciate the subscription. YouTube doesn't exactly market me or other people. It's just kind of incidental with how algorithms and these things kind of churn things out, especially for a corporate audience, right? From a corporate constructed standpoint. So if you know someone who likes this, please share it with them. From there, I got a few more videos to come, and then basically I'm going to make an announcement ahead of time. Got to take a little hiatus from the channel. Eventually, I'm kind of bummed about that, because I really like the stride I hit with these last few video series, especially in the last 6 months. But eventually I'll be set up again and kind of back to my what I've been doing here. I have a few more videos to put out this month, and then I'll be taking that hiatus. Also wanted to make another announcement. So this is just a perpetual proverbial announcement, and I'll put out one in and of itself. This is to say this channel has ongoing poetry readings, something I started, something I'd like to continue. So if you're a poet or a writer and you have a piece of poetry or a short, few paragraph flash fiction or something like that, please submit your work to sharperssubmissions@gmail.com. Again, I'll put that on the screen. And from here, I'll just say, if we're so fortunate as to be here tomorrow, I will see you then. Take care. Bye.